The first thing we're going to start with is our backdrop. And the easiest way to do that is to just cover the entire canvas in your backdrop colors. This backdrop is a mixture of 3 colors, and I've already gone ahead and put those on my palette. So we have our black, green, and blue here, and I put a small amount on our palette. We don't have a huge canvas to cover, and you can always add more. So the first brush I'm going to take is our bigger flat brush. And what I want to do, I just want to dip it in the water real quick to help spread the paint evenly. So I'm just gonna go back and forth, kind of putting green on my canvas. I do all of the painting in the same line. So I'm gonna grab some blue quick and mix that in. I did not rinse out my brush between these colors because we do want the background to blend. So I'll put some blue in here and kind of mix it in with that green, and make sure your brush strokes are all going the same direction because that will help you add the sunflower layer later. I will also pick up a little bit of black, kind of put that in places as well. You just want to make sure that you smooth it out, going back and forth. And now we let it dry. So in the meantime, you can go and actually wash out your brush, get some new water. The next step you're going to do is take one of your round brushes and you're going to use white paint. So I cleaned off my palette, so all I have is the white paint left. And I'm just going to take some water and mix it into my white paint. So I get a really thin, very transparent white paint. This is what you're going to sketch with to get your shape onto your canvas. Kind of mark out the center of your flower, and it's gonna be right in the middle right here. So it's just gonna be a half a circle, and this doesn't have to be perfect at all because we're gonna paint over it with all of our main colors. So probably dividing it into thirds, I'm gonna do my half circle right about here. So we're gonna start and just kind of sketch it in. The next thing we're going to do, you sketch in all of your individual petals. So on this one, as my canvas is rather large, I have more petals. I'm probably going to do a couple less petals on here. Visualize where that point, that center point would be in the center right about here. So I'm just gonna put a little dot there. And then you're just kind of making an eye shape. Try and match where those curves go. Make sure the bottom's not super pointy because it does connect into the base. So it's not exactly even, but that's totally fine. So then what you're going to do is then space out all of your other petals. So these are our main petals here. And then we're also going to just mark in our background petals. Figuring out that same shape, because we don't want just a big triangle back here. We still want it to be a tapered point. But our points are going to be on that same curve. So if you kind of imagine it and then paint it. Also, you see the curves of the background petals in here as well. You're going to take a slightly bigger brush and you're just going to fill it in with the actual white paint. So this will give us a nice base color. Make sure that these lines that you're doing, even for the background, match the curve of the petal. So you don't want to go horizontally like your background is. You want to go with the flow of the petal. So kind of that petal shape. I'm kind of redefining my edges here with my white paint. That is our white layer, and we really can't add a ton of yellow until this is dry to the touch. So what we're going to do is paint the entire background of this black, and then we're going to mix our own custom brown to paint the individual seeds inside. So we're going to mix yellow and red to make the orange and add the green for a brown color. Now I'm just going to take my brush, which I've cleaned, and scoop just a bit of the yellow and some of the red. So this is a nice orange. It's really kind of close to that orange. Another thing you need to remember too, especially with acrylic paint, is that it dries darker than what it looks like when it's wet. Take a bit of that orange that we made, make another separate pile. Because we need to make some brown, we're going to take some of that green that we had. And we're gonna mix that together. We're gonna need a bit more red in that. But you see it's kind of starting to turn into that, it's a light brown color. We're just going to take that tiny, tiny bit of black and mix a dark brown over here. I'm going to go and paint the inside black. So we're gonna just cover it. And then we're going to go in with our original brown color. And we're just going to coat everything in yellow. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with our big brush. We're going to cover everything in its yellow color. So we're going to start with the background. And so now we have our first coat of yellow, and we're just gonna let that dry a little bit more, and we'll add a second coat of yellow in. So we're just going to take a little bit of that orange that we had and mix it with a little bit of our yellow. So we have a really light yellowy orange. With your smaller rounded brush, you're just going to do the same thing at the bottom. So grab the bit of lighter orange, go into the slightly redder color that we had, and just add it right into the creases. We'll mix yellow with white, so our yellow paint with our white paint to create a light yellow. And we're going to use some of our orange and add a little bit more shading to our petals. So once we get a yellow that you really like, that you want to use as the highlights, you can go ahead and start adding some of that in there. I am going to just slightly wet my brush a little bit so that the paint goes on just a little bit thinner. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight the tips of each petal as well as the base. The foreground petals, you're going to add more of the highlight color to. And after that, I'm going to go back to that orangish color and mix a little bit of that lighter yellow that we just mixed up, creating yet another orange. This is a very light orange. It's just going to be another layer. Take some of that red that we had used earlier, just the straight red. We don't need to mix it really with anything. And I'm going to go in and kind of do a little bit more detail work right in the shadows in here. Then we're going to just bring in strokes, and they're not going to start at the tip or at the end. They're going to be right in the middle and keep that curve that we have going, that natural line with the petals. See, I'm not doing full strokes. I'm doing kind of more patchy strokes, and they're not all perfect. They're not all solid. Just kind of adding those in there. We might want to go back in a little bit later, add a little bit more red, but right now I'm going to mix some of that purple that I was talking about before. Now I have my blue and I have my red, and I'm just going to take a bit of that blue, move it to the center, take a bit of that red, and I'm just going to mix it right in between those two colors. I'm just going to add some purple in here. So the first place I'm going to add it is right over top of that red in the background, and we're going to do even smaller amount. So we kind of jumped ahead a little bit. I started with this lighter orange, added some variation to the different petals. Then I went through with just a plain red, and I added some red. You can see it peeking through. So I built all of these colors up in different layers. So I started with that red, then I moved to a darker purple, added that darker purple in there. You can see it kind of helps to define those edges in there. Then I mixed white with that darker purple and created this lighter lilac-y purple, and I added that as well. And then I took that dark purple and some red and made a really dark maroon, and that really brought some of this depth to the painting. So let it dry for a little bit, and now I'm going to go in and add some of that white highlight. I'm just going to add some more of those light yellow highlights as well, just like we were doing with the white itself. So now it's basically finished. You can go back and do any edits that you want. So I really like how you can see all of the seeds in the bottom of this example picture. So I'm just going to go back and do that really quickly. This way it reminds me of a sunrise or a sunset, especially with all of the deep purples and reds that are in there. So I really like this one horizontally, but my smaller one, I actually really like how it looks vertically. Right now I'm done. The last thing you're gonna need to do is sign the corner. So if you have it this way yet, you'll sign this corner. If you decide to switch it around like I did, I'll sign the bottom. I'm just gonna put my initials, CS, and then the year, which is 20. That is it. We are done. Congratulations, guys. You painted a sunflower.